Fellow Ghanaians, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for joining us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. Well, it's been a rainy day, and I hope you're all safe. As much as I don't like to hope, because this is in our situation anytime it rains, unfortunately, that's all we have left. Sad, isn't it? So we're told that some 450 million Ghana cedis has been spent over the past 5 years dealing with flooding, despite the fact that the ministry says we need $5 billion to fix it. Now just pause for a minute and think about it. We're told we need $5 billion. Multiply that by 8 and you're getting to what? 40 billion Ghana cedis. But what do we see? We've spent just 1% of that. Listen, 1% of that over the past 5 years in solving a problem that is expected to cost us 40 billion, we've spent 450 million Ghana cedis. How caring can we be in the year of our Lord 2022? Well, between 2015 and 2019, an audit conducted by the Audit Service reviewed the following: that they found that the Hydrological Services Department did not produce drainage master plans to guide the coordinated development of drainage facilities, which thus affected the department's ability to plan the provision of flood control structures in a holistic manner. Each year, we're told from 2015 to 2019, the Hydrological Services Department significantly fell short of implementing their target of drainage facilities needed to mitigate flooding nationwide. Over the audit period, we're told that 12.2 kilometers, that's 11% of the targeted 110 kilometers of drains was constructed, and none of the retention ponds, listen carefully, none of the retention ponds targeted for 18 drainage basins had been done. This is the Hydrological Services Department. Now, the audit continues. We also noted that the Hydrological Service Department ensured contractors were paid for only valid works done, and the final cost of projects were within their respective contract sums. However, construction of 74% of the 27 sampled projects delayed partly because of delayed payments to contractors, which made them to suspend works on the projects. According to the Auditor General, or the Audit Report, we found that the Hydrological Service Department and the Ministry of Works and Housing did not maintain completed and existing drains because maintenance was not prioritized and therefore not included in annual activity plans and budgets to enable implementation. Now, the unmaintained drains had weeds, silts, debris that impeded the smooth flow of water and reduced the effectiveness of existing drains to mitigate flooding. I'm sure you may have heard this over and over again whenever it rains. And they say, in their opinion, the Hydrological Services Department implemented measures has largely not been effective in controlling and mitigating flood in the country. And the Auditor General says they have made recommendations to the Hydrological Service Department and the Ministry of Works and Housing to have a long-term and holistic planning of drainage development and collaborate with other key sector agencies. And they also recommended that the Hydrological Service Department prioritize the development of a drainage master plan as a blueprint to guide key players to align drainage facilities and other civil infrastructure that creates conflict in drainage networks and reduce the efficiency and effectiveness of storm water drains. And this is why I find the decision to make the Hydrological Services Department an authority interesting. Now, the minister says that's the way to go. They believe that in doing so, we would be able to deal with flooding. My very good friend, Raymond Aqua, just put this out that I find interesting, that NADMO recorded some 1,446 flood events, which caused 309 injuries and 510 deaths, 54,744 houses inundated, and destruction of some 136 acres of farmland. You ask yourself that simple question: what is it that has to be done in making sure that we're able to deal with flooding in this country? Is it a decision to make the Hydrological Services Department of the Ministry of Works and Housing an autonomous authority to be able to deal with flooding. But before we get into the conversation, before I introduce my guest to you this evening, let's listen to what the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament has been saying concerning flooding.
Tell you what you all know, that this day is a rainy day, and we those who are representatives of the residents of Accra are, as you know, completely worried about the rain and its effect on the lives of our people. Actually, a number of the MPs are around their constituencies trying to see what they could do to help the constituents. And so my attention has been drawn to it. And then we've been trying to see what we could do. The House should need to have a meeting, whether at the Committee of the Whole, with the sector ministers in charge of the situation. A drainage situation, the housing sector, works, we have to do to welfare, our behavior as a people, so that we see what kind of interventions as a house we could put in place to support. It's very, very important. We can't continue to have this year in and year on, just ad infinitum. It's not acceptable. And so please, leadership, try and get in touch with the sector ministers. Let's have a conversation on this issue. If not, you are the people that your constituents will continue to blame, because you are the people that they elected to make their lives better. So please, I understand why so many of you are not present in the House.
Right, so that's the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, saying we need to solve this. Let's sit down and deal with it once and for all. And we've been telling you here on the Joy News channel that in 2021, sources tell us that the ministry requested some 888 million Ghana cedis. That was not released. And the minister makes it clear in a presentation to cabinet that, look, every year that we delay in dealing with the challenge once and for all, we incur more cost. So while we're being told that it's going to cost us 5 billion, because of the delay, I'm sure by now, even as we speak, it may have gone up. But tonight, our focus is on the Hydrological Authority. We're told that's the way to go. The minister has been, was in Parliament today, and he's been talking about how this authority is going to help change things. It's going to help to make Ghana better when it comes to flooding. This evening, we're joined by Dr. John Kisi, who is a technical advisor at the Ministry of Works and Housing. We also have Engineer Abdullahi Mahama joining us. He's a civil engineer. Good evening, Engineer Mahama. Good evening, Dr. John Kisi. And thank you very much for joining us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Great. So let me start off with you, Dr. John Kisi. Since you are with the Ministry of Works and Housing, help us understand why we believe that making the Hydrological Services Department an authority is the panacea to solving our flooding problems.
Right. Thank you very much. Good evening once again to you and to all your viewers. And so the need for the Hydrological Authority, there are several good reasons why we should have it. I'll start by looking at the bill proposes a hydrological fund with a dedicated source of funding. You would agree with me that that is one factor, because we'll come to that, but despite the significant investment that government has made, we still, as you alluded to, have huge challenges.
What you call significant investment?
Your minister has indicated. You mentioned it earlier, a commitment of 450 million.
Out of the 40 billion that we need. That's 1%.
1%. Exactly.
How can 1% of the total sum be significant investment?
It is significant in context because,
help me understand.
Yes, no government has ever invested such figures or such an amount into fighting flooding in our country. And that has to be put in context, because over 5 years, what's been committed compared to the previous government. And really, I do not want to go in this direction, but because you ask, it's important to put this figure in context. In the previous years, the figures came out to about 80 million, in almost 8 years. And in 5 years, we're talking about 450 million. And it also has to be put in context because there are competing needs and there are significant demands on government resources. And so, yes, I'm the first to agree that in the context of what we need, it seems very little, but in the context of the demands on government resources and also what has been done in the past, we can say that it's significant. A lot more has to be done, and that is why the hydrological authority is important. And when the bill is passed, there will be the hydrological fund. The minority leader, I like what the minority leader suggested, that we call it flood fund, or perhaps we call it flood mitigation fund. But whatever we call it, the most important thing is that it will be a fund that would only be committed and dedicated to fighting flooding, and also with dedicated sources and ring-fenced, within the control of the authority itself, not subject to government control, that can be used to make strategic investment to fight flooding.
Okay.
Now, the other advantage...
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the other advantage of having the authority is that the authority can engage with development partners and seek, alternative sources of funding beyond government sources. Engage private investors and private partners as well in fighting flooding. The authority itself can generate funds, by engaging in profit-making activities, providing consultancy services that would help generate funds. The authority, when established, will be in a position to also attract and retain highly skilled professionals. There's a bit of a challenge at the moment where, people are attracted into the department, they are trained, and then, there are big, if I can use them, big boys like the Breedams and the VRAs that need similar skills, and they find themselves in those organizations, that pay better. So that's another advantage. Then greater autonomy to make strategic and long-term decisions, so that it's not, if I can put it in quote, not less political influence, more strategic thinking and more strategic decision making, and that will help us to fight flooding. So these are a few of the advantages of setting up an authority.
Now, that's interesting, because some would ask the question, is this the same Hydrological Services Department that the Auditor General, in an audit, found out that they did not produce drain master plans to guide the coordinated development of drainage facilities, which thus affected the department's ability to plan the provision of flood control structures in a holistic manner? Are we still talking about the same institution that we are told, for instance, that it fell short of implementing their target of drainage facilities needed to mitigate flooding nationwide? And we're told also that they found out that the Hydrological Service Department did not maintain completed and existing drains because maintenance was not prioritized and therefore not included in the annual activity plans and budgets to enable the implementation, and that the unmaintained drains had weeds, silts, debris that impeded the smooth flow of water and reduced the effectiveness. They conclude that, in their opinion, the Hydrological Service Department's measures has largely not been effective in controlling and mitigating flooding in this country. This is the department.
So I think that you are actually supporting my point here.
No, I am asking you. Hold on a second. I am asking you that this is a department that, according to an audit report, has implemented measures that have not been effective in controlling and mitigating flooding. So,
Yes,
if we leave this department to deal with our flooding, how sure are you that they're going to do anything different from what they've done in the past?
yes, and that is exactly the point I'm making here, and that is the more reason why we are looking at an authority here, because I've told you that as an authority, will be the department as an authority would be in a position to attract and retain highly skilled professionals. And I've explained to you that because of the salary structure being a civil service organization, this is a highly skilled area, and there are very few professionals in this sort of area, and they are very much sought after. And so, you bring them in, you train them, salary structure not so great, and as I've mentioned, Breedham and the VRAs, they are waiting to get them in.
Let me bring.
So they be having an authority, with that kind of autonomy to be able to, engage in profit-making activities. Will be able to retain these highly skilled professionals, and they'll be able to deliver. And so, yes, there are challenges here, and we allude to those challenges, and that is the more reason why we called for support from both the majority and the minority. And I'm very glad to say that if you actually followed the debate in Parliament, both the minority and the majority were fully in support of setting up an authority, because we believe that having an authority with all these advantages as I've enumerated would help us, and will do better.
Let me bring in Engineer Mahama here, because he thinks otherwise. Engineer Mahama, you say this is what?
Good evening to your cherished viewers. I'll throw some few questions to the Dr. Kisi,
yes,
to give answers to, so that we can have a very healthy discussion. I want to know from him whether the authority is going to work directly under, or it's going to be an agency under the Ministry of Works and Housing. I want to know that one first, because the Ghana Highway Authority is an agency under the Ministry of Roads and Highways. So I need to know that one from him first, then I can proceed.
Yes, Dr. Kisi.
Well, I will answer the question, but I presume that you are the one who asked the questions, right?
Yeah, so I am asking you. He's asking the question on
no,
my behalf.
I'll take questions from you, not from me.
So is this going to be under the Ministry
on a
of
lighter
Works
note,
and
it's
Housing?
a discussion we're having. We want to have a good discussion.
No, so it shouldn't be a question.
No, I am asking you whether this is going to be under the ministry. I was going to ask you anyway, but once he's brought it in, that was going to be my next batch of questions to you. But once he's asked it, let me just go ahead and ask whether this is going to be under the Ministry of Works and Housing.
He has already made that point about Ghana Highway Authority. So I don't think there's a need to ask. So he can go ahead and...
I'm asking you. It's not just you. It's not just you answering him. Hold on, Dr. Kisi. It's just not you answering him. There are a lot of our viewers waiting to know. So is this going to be an authority under the Ministry of Works and Housing?
Yes, and the answer is that every authority, every agency has a supervising ministry. It's a department under the Ministry of Works and Housing. When it becomes an authority, we have a supervising ministry, because there are certain engagement, there are certain things that you cannot directly do as an authority, I'm sure by law, and I'm sure lawyers would be able to advise better on that. You are not able to do certain things. For example, our budget, would have to be under a ministry. And so the supervising ministry will be the Ministry of Works and Housing.
Great. Engineer Mahama, you can continue now.
Well, for me personally, I don't see where the Ghana Hydrological Authority is going to lead to the solving of the problem, as in becoming an agency that can even generate funds. Where am I coming from? The Department of Hydrology had been giving adequate information to the Works and Housing Ministry. All the information that the Auditor General spoke about, the 18 retention pond that was proposed, was coming from the same department. the 111 kilometers of drainage extension were all coming from the same department. So the department will still work whichever way or form. You're going to just increase another bureaucratic system where we're going to have an authority with all the chief executive, the board, the directors, and will still take approval from the Ministry of Works and Housing. I do not see what's significant the Hydro Authority is going to add when monies are going to come from the Ministry of Works and Housing. I don't know how they are going to generate funds when they extend the drainage that we have in Accra, because the drainage extensions, they are not money-making ventures. So let's be clear with this. There are institutions who have become department or commissions who have now turned into authority, and they are still acting on the same level. The town and country planning. You remember town and country planning?
Yeah.
In 2016, the Land Use and Special Planning Act at 2016 at 925 made them an authority, and they have explicit powers. So they have their reps at all their assemblies, and they have the power to enact or effect instant prohibitions of structures which are identified in waterways, and effect instant demolitions in the at 121, at 117, at 131, at 113. The Land Use and Special Planning at 2016 is explicit. There's an authority, the Land Use and Special Plan Authority, which was passed in 2016. What has been their essence? I mean, what has been their effects from the town and country planning metamorphosing to the planning authority as we speak? So I do not see what's significant the department is going to turn into when they become an authority in this country. When funds are not located, we don't need to have an authority before government would allocate a certain fund from whatever budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Works and Housing to be given to that particular division to effect all the suggestions, technical advice to the ministry to carry out all the constructions. Have we heard the the land Hydro taking construction or actively involved in a major construction other than giving technical advice? The Works and Housing Ministry is an embodiment that carries out all those local constructions within the capital and other regions, not the Hydro division. They are experts who have identified all locations for buffer zones. They have all the experts who give locations for where we should have the retention ponds, which the author general said that out of the 18, not even one had been started for the past 5 years. So it is not the solution to the flood problem. I don't think any parliamentarian or any expert can convince me as a technocrat in this field of engineering for the past 19 years that that is the solution. The assemblies have a major role to play. The assemblies are the ones who issue permits. Is the authority and the Hydro going to start to effect demolitions under their powers? Are they going to have a conflict within the local government ministry, which has the power to effect instant demolition of houses on our water courses? We will break the law one after the other. And we see that when the assembly decides to work effectively, the department would just augment the effort of the Works and Housing Ministry by advising or giving technical information to the ministry to effectively work in this country, not an authority. We have the Road Safety Commission becoming an authority. We have the Geological Service Department becoming an authority. And these are all in the technical spheres of what we are talking about now. Can you tell me how significant that has been? We just want to create another department, another institution, and then spend so much money to physically erect their structures across the country, dotted across the regional capitals before we start to work. I am sorry to differ from all the suggestions the doctor is giving on this platform this evening.
Okay, so if I may come in here,
please do.
I think that your point, you just focused on one thing, that the authority is not the answer. I don't think anyone has said that the authority is going to be the only solution. You've mentioned the local authority. Nobody has disputed that. In fact, our minister has constantly called the local authority, to do their work by enforcing planning laws, making sure buildings are not in waterways and in wetlands. So the point that you've made, point that we have, in fact, your point that we have constantly made ourselves, but you fail to address the issue of dedicated source of funding, because we are in a situation currently where the department can only work with what government allocate. And what we are saying, and you also said that it's money. The matter, we need more money. We need to invest more. What we are saying is that the fund, which will be outside the control of government, will be under the control of the board. When we are able to secure a dedicated source of funding, which a point that, again, the minority leader made very strongly in his statement in Parliament on Tuesday. On Tuesday, yes. So I think the point that you have actually made support our case that, money have to be set aside to fight flooding. The local authorities have to do their bit.
Dr. Kisi.
So it's a number of factors that
yes,
have
but
to work
these
together.
number of factors you talk about, Dr.
Yes.
Kisi, the funding you talk about. Now, you've talked about your sources of funding. Please hold on. I just want to ask Dr. Kisi a very simple question.
Yes.
Now, in 2021, according to the plan, now my sources tell me, and the minister on the 5th of August 2021 presented a master plan to cabinet. In that master plan, that's the Works and Housing Minister, he talked about how we're expected to construct some 23.3 kilometers of drains, estimated to cost some 888.3 million Ghana cedis. In 2022, we're expected to construct some 27.16 kilometers, which is supposed to cost us 2.36 billion. Now, in 2021, I have seen letters that the minister wrote to the Ministry of Finance, lots of reminders, and monies were not released to him. I'm sure you're aware of that too. So, if monies are not being released, is that not the problem? And here we're talking about huge sums of money, 888 million. This year, we're expecting some 2.3 billion. And as we speak, those funds have not been released. So how do you intend to solve flooding? You're creating an authority when you have realized that, or when you know that the major challenge you're faced with is the non-release of funds. Dr. Kisi.
Yes, and I've already established the fact that there are competing demands on government scarce resources. And so if our ministry goes in for 2 billion, Ministry of Roads and Highways goes in for whatever they need, railway development goes in for whatever they need. So, the funds have to be allocated, in such a way that every ministry can also deliver on their priorities. And so, and I've already established also the fact that the government in context, compared to previous governments, they invest, or the commitment of 150 million Ghana cedis is unprecedented, and it's not only a national flood control program, it's also protecting our coastal communities from tidal flooding. So if we are only saying that, yes, we made a demand and we didn't get it, and so, that's not, the core reason why the authority has to be established is the fact that we are asking for a fund to be established with dedicated sources, right?
And these dedicated sources that you talk about, we know the Garrett project, for instance, where we're, $200 million expected from the World Bank. These are development partners you're talking about.
Yes.
$200 million. Do the calculation, do the math, 1.6 billion. That's supposed to come in to assist, okay?
Yes.
So that's something that you've started doing.
Yes,
over the period, hold on a second, over the period, since you are a technical advisor, over the next 3 to 4 years, How much are you expecting the Hydrological Authority to raise?
So the sources of funding that we have proposed, and of course, it all depends on what Parliament finally will come up with, is a percentage of the road fund. You know, again, the percentages have to be settled. So I'm not able to give you specific numbers at this stage. It all depends on what Parliament agrees. You'd agree with me that if our drains are not properly designed and our drains are not functioning properly, they affect other infrastructure like our roads. You know, we've seen roads being damaged here and there. We've seen bridges being washed away because of inadequacy of the drainage provision. So a percentage of the road fund is supposed to be dedicated, a percentage of the sanitation levy, and other sources that Parliament would also be looking at, you know, and all of these will be ring-fenced. So it won't be a matter of, oh, there is a demand for, you know, maybe police equipment, and so let's put that money into business. This is a dedicated source.
Are you aware, for instance, that Common Fund is always in arrears? Are you aware Are you aware that National Health Insurance Levy and monies to the National Health Insurance Authority is always in arrears?
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you aware?
I'm talking about a specific.
I am just drawing your attention.
Specific fund.
No, I'm just drawing your attention. I'm just drawing your attention that these funds that you talk about would have to be released to you. If the funds are not released to you, we find ourselves in the same situation we find ourselves today.
Yeah.
If you are saying if, and if the funds are released.
If the funds are released, bingo. But
the
evidence from the past suggests a non-release of funds and funds being in arrears. So,
all right, so
why don't we decide to make the monies that we allocated to the Ministry of Works and Housing available to do this, rather than resorting to funds to be able to do this? I'll get you to address this, and I'll get Engineer Mohammed's take on this also, but I'll be after these few messages. This is Upfront on the Joy News channel, and tonight the focus is on whether or not the Hydrological Authority is the solution to Ghana's flooding problems. My name is Winston Amma. We're joined by Dr. John Kisi, who's a technical advisor of the Ministry of Works and Housing, and then Engineer Mahama, who is a civil engineer, has also joined us. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Right, so welcome back. This is Upfront on the Joy News channel, and thank you very much for staying with us. And tonight the focus is on flooding. We're looking at the Hydrological Authority. We want to create an authority. We believe this would help us to deal with flooding. We believe that with a dedicated source of funding, we'll be able to, raise the needed funds and help mitigate the impact of flooding. Tonight we're joined by Dr. John Kisi, who is a technical advisor at the Ministry of Works and Housing. We also have Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, who's a civil engineer, joining us. They both joined us on Zoom. So let me get back to Zoom and start with you, Engineer Mahama. So you talked about, how they intend to raise these funding. The question is, we've seen it before. It's happened. National Health Insurance Levy, released to the National Health Insurance Authority, always in arrears, and that's created a bit of a challenge for them. So how sure are we that this is the way to go, Engineer Mahama?
That is a very powerful statement to make, a very pronounced one as such. We have seen over the years with successive governments that there are funds which are backed by acts passed by Parliament. And those funds are used at the discretion of the Ministry of Finance. This is not an exception. Sadly, we'll get to a stage, and maybe after 10 years, God willing, and we will be sitting here, and when we try to put performance-based audit on the Works and Housing, or what they call the Hydrological Service Authority, will not have anything significant to say about them, because the money would definitely go through a certain ministry, and the board cannot rant and the next morning the monies will be given to them. I still keep on with the same word that the parliament, all the good thing that they said, I mean, come from the majority, minority, they can't be wrong because of the past records of authorities who directly need funds from their mother units.
Yes, but Engineer Mahama, despite the fact that there's been arrears in the release, the monies get released eventually.
Yeah.
And so, isn't that a better way to go?
Have you noticed
getting delayed releases than not having releases at all, as we're seeing under the current circumstances?
The floods are not going to wait for you to get the money before the next 3 years for you to expand. When the flood monies are not released on time, like it's just happening right now, where there has been a proposal for the past 5 years or so to have 18 retention ponds, and government has not prioritized even the construction of one, the flood would not wait for you, especially when there has been an exponential expansion of population infrastructure demand across the country, and especially the capital. Other sectors, like the road sector, even with, I heard the doctor saying that some portions of the money will come from the road fund. The road fund already, that money, even if it's quadrupled, it will still be under the amount of money needed to expand the road sector. So let's say that is one portion of where they are going to extract some percentage of money to come and put into the authorities fund. That cannot be significant. And like I'm saying, once government decide to prioritize the flood mitigation measures, you don't need an authority. The interconnectivity between the local assemblies, the local government ministry, and then more or less, let's say, superintended by the Western Housing Ministry, would solve this problem. But I must be quick to add that we don't have BSc in hydrology. Civil engineers or other engineering departments will finish their first degree and then specialize. Are we now going to poach people from outside the country to come and start with these offices? I am saying, get 20 of us, Engineer Mohammed's type. Like I said, not for me to work in the ministry, of course I'm not, but get my types, make available data or tax those engineers to redesign all the buffer areas or the drainage areas in Accra, backed by the Minister for Works and Housing. This wouldn't need any authority to make it successful. So I'll speak today, and Joy FM and Joy News would have the records done, and we played 10 years after that. We don't need an authority in these specific instances to solve the problem. Now let me ask this question. Before any development takes place in Accra, the penchant of the local assemblies ignoring other agencies before issuing of permits to structures, is it going to stop because a hydro department has come into fruition? The power given to the assemblies to demolish structures while they are sleeping now, is the authority going to be another authority over the local government ministry or the assemblies? When permits are supposed to be issued, I am fighting a current cause where an assembly is issuing permits for 2 filling stations to be separated by just a thin wall. Meanwhile, the NPA, which is an authority, had given a directive as part of the requirement that no filling station can be started from each other with 300-meter radius. Yet, there has been 2 permits from the same authority giving 2 individuals to start filling stations with a separation of just a wall.
let me bring in, Dr. John Kisi here. I don't know if you want to react to that. Other than that, I move to my next question to you.
Yeah, I would like to react to that.
Sure, please go ahead.
I think my fellow engineer is only focused on things that don't work. Before I joined the ministry, I was practicing in the UK. There are challenges everywhere. If you're going to be living your life focusing on what things didn't work in the past rather than learning from them and making sure they work for the future, you cannot make progress in life.
That is below the belt. Doctor, please, that is below the belt. I'm giving you instances of current permit which was just issued about a week ago that I am fighting as an individual to go to the MPA to ask them why they are giving permits to two filling stations at the same location when we have issues of such matters in Accra. It can't be the past. No, I'm anticipating what's going to happen in the future. Are you aware? Wait, hold on, please. Hold on, respectfully. Are you aware that recently I spoke about the water uphill, that if we don't take measures, it will get to a time that we cannot even have any of the carriageway coming to Accra. And for the first time in the history of Ghana, it has happened that 3 days down the line, we could not use the Accra-bound portion of the Kaswa. It is not in the past. I do the research and will preempt and will tell authorities to act accordingly. So when thing doesn't happen, you need to know that people have made projections and it has not been respected. That is not in the past. Okay. That cannot be in the past.
Okay. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But I'm concerned that everything you are talking about is so negative, and I don't think that is the way to build a nation. You are. So far you have not said anything positive. You're talking about people of your caliber being brought in to do things. Now, as a department under the ministry, as a civil civil servant or whatever, if you were brought in to come and work in this department, you will not work because the salary will not be anything to write home about. All right, but as an authority,
is that your perception?
Yes, I know.
Hold on, Engineer Mahama.
I deal with engineers of your caliber.
I've been doing pro bono sessions for this country for the past 16 years without a fee.
Hold on, Engineer Mahama.
Before you continue with that assertions,
get to know the person well.
Hold on, Engineer Mahama. Hold on.
We'd like to engage you.
For this country.
Hold on, Engineer Mahama.
We'd like to engage you. We'd like to engage you.
Hold on, Engineer Mahama.
The point here.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Kisi.
Yes, the point here is that everything you have said, you focus on the money will not be released and all of that, but it's not also all about money. Okay, now on the board of the authority, we have the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and I've explained to you how inadequate drains affect or cause flooding and how that damages our roads. Under the board also has the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. You would agree with me that solid waste management, the disposal of solid waste is a big issue when it comes to flood management. And so if you only focus your argument on funds and the fact that funds may not be released, and even here we are talking about if, it's as if that we are concluding that funds will not be released. But you said you're talking about if. What about if it's released? And also it's not just all about funds, as I've just explained. All right, so I would be optimistic, I'll be positive, and I would agree with the minority and with the majority in Parliament that this is a good thing. Nobody is saying that is going to solve all the problems. All these other points that you've talked about, the role of the local authorities, we've already talked about that. Our minister has said countless times, how the local authorities have to be up and doing. The local authorities cannot be under the Ministry of Works and Housing. They have their own ministry that they are running. They have to be up and doing, and we hope that they would actually be up and doing. We expect that, and our minister has been making a point, individuals' own conduct, depositing solid waste in our drains. Those are all contributory factors. So no one has said that, setting up an authority, all of a sudden, all our flooding problems are going to be solved. It's going to take time. We do not have the $5 billion as a country to invest to deal with these flood challenges that we have. It's going to take time. So the fact that we set up an authority and next year there's flooding doesn't mean that the authority hasn't worked. So far, the 450 million Ghana City has been committed. If you go to communities where these works have been implemented, go to Madina Maya Hot, go to Kwesimintim, go to Apenkwa, go to Adabraka, Odona, all those places where projects have been implemented, people have been protected. Yes, there's a lot more to be done. I'm the first to own up. And I believe that if we all, get our act together, if you all work together, and I want to throw an invitation to you, come to the Ministry of Works and Housing, come and let's have a discussion. Let's see how you can also help us as a citizen and not as a spectator.
Okay, so let me find out from you. I mean, you've talked about all the things that you're doing. But, I mean, one of the things, I'll get you, Engineer Mahama, one of the things the audit report talked about was the unavailability of a flood master plan. You have one now? Dr. Kisi.
Oh, sorry. You said Engineer Mahama.
No, I said I'll come to Engineer Mahama, but let me stay with you.
Okay. Okay. So we have a master plan for Accra, one that was developed under Gama. Some master plan was developed for Kumasi a while back, but again, that was a gap that has been identified. That going
so do we have a national master plan for floods?
What do you mean by master plan? So I think your question is not. So if you're talking about
my question is very clear. The audit service, the Auditor General, in a report he commissioned, says you don't have a flood master plan.
I don't think they talked about flood master plan. They're talking about drainage master plan.
No, sorry, drainage master plan.
Absolutely. That's what I'm explaining to you.
Where is it?
I just said to you that we have one for Accra that was developed under the Gama project. Some was developed for Kumasi some time past. But I admit that there's a gap that we need to address going forward. And that is why I talked about the fact that one of the advantages of having an authority is this long-term strategic planning, which doesn't have to wait for the release of funds, to make things happen, because you have funds that the board has control over. And all of these drainage master plans are things that are being developed. It will be done city by city. We have one for Accra, which we are working to. As a matter of fact, the Garrett project came out of a citywide assessment of risk, and the Odo drainage channel was identified as the priority area or priority catchment for undertaking intervention.
What's the status of the Garrett project?
Well, the Garrett project is made a lot of progress. We, as you are aware, have structural and non-structural measures that we are implementing. With the structural measures, we have the performance-based dredging, which is an innovative approach to dredging, which is different from what we currently do, which is based on volumes. Currently, contractor is paid according to volumes dredged. With the Garrett performance-based dredging contract, is going to be based on the performance of the channel. With that, we have actually come very close to the end of the procurement process. We are expecting that by the end of this month or mid-July, we'll be in a position to sign a contract and announce a commencement date. We have other structural measures, including the building of 2 detention ponds in Gayek Atomic Energy Area, 2 detention ponds. We are expanding the drainage at Kaneshi, at Nima. Those of your listeners who are technical will know the Nima drain currently joins the Odo at a 90-degree angle, which is not very helpful, because when the Odo water level in the Odo rises, then there's surcharging. So we are going to change that angle, and we are also going to expand the capacity of the drain in Nima. All of those, and then the Achimota, all of those, we at the detailed design stage. We have draft detailed design that the ministry and the World Bank are jointly reviewing, and after that we would be moving to the detail. We'll get the final detailed design, and we'll begin the procurement process. We expect that by the end of this year, we'll begin construction on those structural interventions. Then we have the non-structural intervention, which is a flood early warning system. You would agree with me, when people get the opportunity of being informed in advance, when the flood is coming, they're able to take measures to protect, their lives and their valuables. And so we have a model that is being built that will receive forecast rain from the meteorological agency. That will process it and identify areas across the city that would likely to experience flooding. Messages will be sent out, working with NADMO to make sure that people are protected.
Thank you. Let me get to Engineer Mahama. Finally, we've talked about it. Dr. John Kissi has provided some explanations. Final thoughts.
I want Dr. Kissi to know or to retract that I'm being negative. Maybe this is the first time he's watching me, but you, Joe Elton, and almost all the viewers know where I stand. I want him to take, I cannot command him. I would like a doctor to take a cursory glance just behind Abofu. When you're on the Achimota, a new bridge that leads to the lorry station, the new lorry station, just look at your right, the media center. Over the past 6-7 years, not in this current administration, over 20 slabs have collapsed into one of the major drains from Abofu, Domi Pillar 2, Neoplan, coming to the Odo. And we know that the capacity of the Odo has been greatly reduced because of siltation, especially not even the suspended materials on the waste on the surface, because that's like the law of flotation.
Okay.
But over 60% plus of the capacity of the Odo had been reduced because of the silt. Now, I've been hammering on the fact that just go across the Abofu there. The slabs which are collapsed into the drain have allowed erosion, serious erosion, to bring a lot of silt to the Odo. And we are using the same money to distill the Odo when the problem is just about 3 kilometers away. This for the past 7 years. So if I see this basic one, which is a direct contributor of the Odo in terms of siltation, and over the years, I've sat on almost all the platforms and not being negative, but drawing the attention of the authorities to act.
Engineer
just
Mahama.
3 kilometers away and it's not being done.
Okay.
You cannot call that negative.
Sure.
Secondly,
Finally,
board,
yes, our time is up.
The board at the assembly who issued the permit have NADMO officers, they have environmental protection agencies, they have technocrats, civil engineers, highway engineers, feeder road engineers on it.
Okay.
So that doesn't change anything that is happening here. So please just check the records of Engineer Abdullah Mahama, and then you come again with a negative thought that you're talking about.
Exactly, Engineer Mahama. Thank you.
I will invite you to come over for a chat. Then you can see how you help us as a citizen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. John Kissi. Thank you very much, Engineer Mahama. We're grateful that you made time to join us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. My name is Winston. I'm on behalf of the team. Thank you very much for joining us. Catch you on the Super Morning Show tomorrow on Joy 99.7 FM. Our time now for Joy News Prime. Have a lovely evening.